Okay, I just want to say something very briefly about continuing off the idea that faith, truth is subjectivity, inwardness is a paradoxical relation to the paradox. Kierkegaard thinks, and we're going to come back to this, why he thinks Christian religiosity or religiousness be, or faith in the God man, the absolute absurdity, is the highest form of faith. But right now we've been talking about faith as a paradox relating to the paradox, or absurdity relating to the absurd. There's a trinity here, such that the human being paradoxically relates to God, right? And so there's three things here, and this is the Hegelian triad, if you will. There's the human being, the relation between the human being and God, right? The truth, the relation, and the human being. Now, if you look on page, and here's the thing. So far, we've talked about faith as an absurdity and the paradox as an absurdity, but there's a third absurdity, namely what the human being itself is. Okay, and if you look on page, we're just going to skip ahead here. We're going to get to the sickness unto death later, but I wanted to just bring this up on page 351. For Kierkegaard, the human being is this self that is temporal and is constantly existing and is constantly becoming and thus is constantly in progress. We have free will. The human being cannot close. It never closes. It's like two lines that sort of never meet. They almost are going to meet, but they're never going to meet until death. So we make a self. This is exactly what Heidegger means by Dasein. Where we have our being to be. Our being is a problem, an issue, a question, something to be worked out. Quaestio mihi factus sum. I become a question to myself. Who am I? Yes. What is a human being? Human being is the being that asks the question, what is a human being, right? Who am I? That's who I am. I'm the being that can ask, who am I? Okay. Now, as such, the human being can't ever sort of complete this process, can't ever integrate the self. Now, we saw for Sartre, we talked a little bit about this, and Heidegger doesn't really answer that question, but I mentioned for Sartre, he thinks there's an impossibility to relate for the human being to actually be. Right? The human being is this deconstructive process that is always tearing down and constructing new selves. And there's a problem that the human being can't ever identify with the self that it's made, right? So can I say, I'm Duane the professor? Well, in some sense, yeah, that's a possibility that I've taken up, but I have to continually choose that again. And it doesn't encapsulate me, right? Am I a professor? Well, that's just what I do. Am I Duane? Well, that's just a name I call myself. Am I an Italian American? Well, that's just my family's history. Who am I really? And this is a question that we have to decide. Now, Kierkegaard takes, as a Christian existentialist, he actually takes a different perspective on this. He thinks that the human being actually has itself integrated when it, what he calls, rests in the power that posited it, or rests in the power that establishes it. But here's how he defines the human being on 351, and it's fantastic. A human being is spirit. Okay? What is spirit? But what is spirit? Spirit is the self. But what is the self? The self is a relation that relates itself to itself. Or is the relations relating itself to itself in the relation? The self is not the relation, but is the relations relating itself to itself. A human being is a synthesis of the infinite and the finite, of the temporal and the eternal, of freedom and necessity. In short, a synthesis. A synthesis is a relation between two. Considered in this way, a human being is still not a self. In the relation between the two, the relation is the third as a negative unity, and the two relate to the relation and in the relation to the relation. Thus, under the qualification of the psychical, the soul, the mind, the relation between the psychical and the physical is a relation. If, however, the relation relates itself to itself, this relation is the positive third, and that is the self. Such a relation that relates itself to itself must either have established itself or have been established by another. What's he saying here? He's saying that same problem of relation, of irrelation between the temporal and the eternal, the infinite and the finite, is in us too. We have an element of the eternal. We have an element of the particular, or of the universal, of the eternal, of the infinite within us. How else does he put it there? Freedom and necessity. Body and soul. We're a paradox too. And here's the thing. We're a paradox, paradoxically relating to the paradox, the truth. Or we're an absurdity, paradoxically relating to an absurdity. So we're an absurdity, the absurdity of the infinite and the finite, the freedom and necessity, the temporal and the eternal, the soul and the body, paradoxically relating in faith to the paradox of the eternal and the temporal, right? And you see here, so we're finite being, which is a mix of infinity and infinity, infinity and finitude, eternality and temporality, right? Freedom and necessity, relating paradoxically to the eternal truth, which itself has come into existence, right? And now is itself a paradox between the infinite and the finite, the eternal and the temporal, etc., freedom and necessity, whatever. The God-man. The human being is a paradox, paradoxically relating to a paradox, okay? And here's the thing. There is no way to aufhebung or sublate these things. Aufheben, I guess it would be. There is no way to bring these two together conceptually. The paradoxes, the absurdities, the offense are not conceptually mediated. They're aconceptually mediated. right? A is in the alpha privative. They're mediated through the passion and integration of faith and eros. And faith, here's the kind of nice thing he says. If faith is eros, what unites the human being together is in faith, resting in the power that posited it, i.e. God, and faith in God, which is essentially love. Faith is love for God. And what he's saying is, in simple language, is love for God, and he's going to say, we'll see later, love for one another, is what integrates the self psychically. And in faith, in love for God, a human being can actually integrate itself and rest in the power that establishes it. Rather than trying to make itself, it can take itself. In the activity of the leap of faith, it can take the self rather than make the self, which is a paradox because you're actually making yourself when you take yourself. You become what you are. You can actually be. The being that is becoming can actually be. You can actually have your being as being.